Hello and welcome to another video review. This is Delta Force 2 for PC. This is the sequel to the original Delta Force, which was released in 1998. This one was released in 1999, the following year. And it's interesting to note that this game isn't really that much different from the original. It's basically a mission pack that's standalone and has a little bit of extra gear in it. There's really not much difference between the two games. They did change up the interface a little bit, mostly in the colors used. They did add in a few new graphics, a couple of new weapons, like the underwater assault rifle and pistol, for instance, a suppressed pistol, and stuff like that. But they didn't really change all that much in the way of the gameplay or even the mission design. It's pretty much exactly the same. So I'm not going to spend much time talking about what things were pretty much kept the same in these two games. Instead, I'm going to talk about the differences between them and whether this one is worth playing if you've played the original or even if you haven't. Things they changed in terms of presentation really didn't do all that much. They added in a few new graphics, they modified the interface a little bit, so it's basically orange instead of green now, and that's kind of it. They put in an ammo bar instead of an ammo counter, which is a little bit of annoying. They actually changed up the position of things a little bit on the interface as well. But other than that, it looks pretty much the same. They just added in a few new graphics for the weapons and places and such like that. It's still a voxel game engine. It still has an enormous draw distance, and it still has a surprisingly large amount of detail in the environments, considering the fact that it's from 1999 and it's a voxel-based game, which is pretty impressive. So the maps in this game are just absolutely massive, and that was the same in the original. As far as the other stuff goes, they kept pretty much all the same sounds from the original game. They just changed up a few things very slightly. Not much. They added in new sounds for a couple of new weapons, but that's kind of it. Apart from that, pretty much everything in the presentation is the same. And they did change the theme song to this game, but that's it. So there really wasn't much change in terms of the presentation. As far as the rest of the game goes, there really isn't much to say if you've seen my Delta Force 1 review. In fact, I'm having an annotation of this entire video because I'm not going to repeat myself here. But Delta Force 2 is pretty much exactly the same thing as the original. The only things they changed were, instead of having 5 campaigns like the original, this one has 2. They're slightly longer than the individual campaigns were in the first game, but they're just 2 campaigns now. There is some variety in where you're going in this game, so it's not like you're in the same environment all the time. There are quick missions available to you, so you can play through those if you want. They add in quite a bit of variety compared to the campaign, actually. Same basic idea on the objectives. They did add in a little bit more complexity to them by having multiple objectives in certain maps, so that's kind of nice. They added in a couple of weapons, namely the underwater assault rifle and pistol, and the suppressed 45 instead of the suppressed 22. That's kind of all they changed, really. Not much in the way of that. They also added in an M4 with a shotgun attachment instead of a grenade launcher. Same basic idea, only it has a shotgun on it. What's not to love? But really, it's the same game. And that's kind of its problem, because if you've played the first one, then you've played the second one just with slightly less stuff in it. So I can't really recommend this to anybody but people who really like the first game, because if you really like the first game, then you'll really like the second one. But keep this in mind, if you haven't played the first one, I'd say play this one, because it's basically the same game, only with slight improvements here and there. So that's certainly something to keep in mind. Also, there are some weird glitches on this one, namely that the objects will sometimes pop through the terrain, and I don't know why that happens, but it's just weird. You'll probably see it in this video, but it's just weird. I don't know what causes it, and I don't know how to fix it, so that's just something weird. It also crashes quite a bit on modern computers, at least in my experience it does, so that's something else to keep in mind. This one was always a little buggier than the original, just period, so that's something else you have to keep in mind. But it's really the same game, and I'm not going to repeat myself much here. So, if you like the original Delta Force, give this one a try. If you didn't like the original, don't bother with it. If you haven't played the original, but say you don't want to go in with, say, Delta Force Black Hawk Down or the other later games in the series, then you may as well give this one a shot.